Well, I find myself, in a sense, having to take issue with Secretary Gates on a number of things, because I think there is a danger, and it's come out a bit in the discussions we've had thus far, that we could overlearn the lessons. You know, those lessons being, don't fight a land war in Asia, you've heard this. We're not very good at nation building. Counterinsurgency was never really going to succeed. And then the last one that is part of the growing conventional wisdom, is that, after all, the Afghans are a tribal society, and a modern, certainly democratic state was really unachievable. Well, you know, just to take them very quickly in order. Obviously, as has already been pointed out here, this was not a war of choice here. Our response to 9/11, I believe, was an appropriate one. We had to take action in that theater. But what I want to stress is that the kind of caution that we're talking about here is caution we're going to have to exercise in any theater. The fact remains that with all of the talk of shifting to Asia, I, for one, think that we're not going to shift away very far from West Asia, right, as against East Asia. We're going to have find that our national interests are still very much tied up with what happens in Afghanistan and Pakistan and the subcontinent. After all, when we went in there with very modest obligations, objectives rather. In fighting this land war, we fought it from the beginning in the most minimal way. We tried to get by with air power. We put far fewer troops on the ground than later seemed wise. And certainly, I will debate anybody who talks about Afghanistan as being the graveyard of history. I think that examination of history does not show that at all. As far as state building is concerned, everyone talks about nation building, but of course we're talking about state. Yes, we cannot involve ourselves in nation building, but it never was about that. Afghanistan is a nation. Nations are about identity. State building is about building institutions, and I think we do have some capacity here. We shouldn't say that necessarily we don't. We may have made some mistakes. We made a number of mistakes in this area, but we can make a contribution here. My point here is that I don't think we did very well, but we didn't try very hard. It never, I think that the effort here in trying to build up a more secure and prosperous state never really got a fair trial. Okay, so this takes us, I think, to counterinsurgency. Look, it took us 9 years to decide that there was a close interrelationship here between what we were doing in terms of combating terrorism, as well as addressing governance and addressing economic improvement in the country, reconstruction. We did not appreciate that. I think we were, those basic elements, I would say, probably were and remain sound, but that whatever it was, when we got around to it, it was just too late. Or at least it made the job of succeeding here far more onerous than it would have been had we instituted some of the same objectives, some of the same strategies in 2004, as late as 2004 and 5. Naturally, once we established deadlines, this was also going to undermine our the counterinsurgency, and we've heard a good many things here this afternoon about that, which I think I agree with. But I think most of all, the one that really bothers me here is, and I'm not saying that there aren't very good arguments here, but I'm saying let's not in each case sell short the fact that there was something to be said about pursuing, or whether it was state building and counterinsurgency. But it's the one that says that the Afghans are really, it's a tribal society. They are basically xenophobic, and therefore and this was never going to be possible. I just think it totally underestimates who the Afghans are and takes away from the fact that they're very rational actors. They have all the instincts of survival that are necessary, and they have pursued it in a rational way. The decisions that they've taken here reflect the fact whether it's because they may have to maintain a patronage system in order to keep it together, but whatever it is, they have not done things which reflect somehow some primitive notions here about governance. It was not to be expected here that we were going to be able to place in position here the institutions once much of the traditional institutions were wiped out by a war that began basically in 1978. But something happened among the Afghans, whereas in the past they looked at government as something to keep at a distance. As a result of their experiences in exile and experiences indeed under the communists as well, that they came to expect more from government. Yes, to try to institute a powerful central government was misguided, but I think that the basic notion here of democracy, where a people seek to determine their own destiny and want to hold their leaders accountable, are basic principles on which you can build in Afghanistan I think the rudiments, at least here, of a democratic society. How you do this, how you go about it, is still another matter. Finally, let me just say that lots of people have come in with views here about how some of these lessons here are just self-evident. We should have seen it, and we are going back, I think, what we've heard here, back to some things that we tried earlier and expecting now they're going to work when they didn't work, when it was, I think, far more likely that we could have succeeded with those. But as Ron Newman has I think very correctly pointed out, Afghanistan is complex enough that anybody who looks at it can find something to justify their interpretation of how it should have turned out, how mistakes that we made, and so I think we have to be modest here as we go forward and recognize that a lot of the things that we did were at the time that they took place, seemed like very calculated, well thought out things, but so much of this is situational, and that I don't think, again, that we should sell short some of the things that we have gotten from this and not end up learning what is essentially the wrong lessons.
Thank you very much.